And we're live.
Hola Madridistas, welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Real podcast. If you guys are new here, don't forget to smash the likes and subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 4K. Also, big up our partners as always. Partners and sponsors, LBI20, you get 20% off and free shipping on manscaped.com. Also, go check out Fanatics. They gets sports apparel collection online. Also, go show some love to Talksport as well. Everything on LBR is officially powered by the Talksport Fan Network. Yeah, with that out of the way, boys, I'm not sure where to begin, where to end, how to really dive into what we just come in, right off of. It's not easy to put into words what it means to watch these guys move on from the club. A day that I dreaded, in the case of Modric, especially a day that I frankly thought would never come. I was utterly gutted that the club didn't really give him an option to at least continue for another year, and I'm pretty sure he would have called it quits by the end of next season. But people would have had different differing opinions, like we saw with me and Farouk. Last week, both sides of the coin are right. Unfortunately, in this regard, but me being a huge Luka fan, and for me, arguably my favorite player in my lifetime. Wearing our colors, it was devastating. This review post match was supposed to be at least half an hour ago, but I just couldn't, gather myself up in time to get on. So I would like to apologize for that firstly, but we are here. We'll get into it, and I think it's very fitting that the OGs are back. Me, Farouk, and Mo, one of those guys who, basically started doing this, 3 years ago. It's been a while. Mo has been a bit caught up with work, but big up Mo, man. Welcome back. I'm not sure if it is the perfect occasion to, step back in, but talk to me, bro. What's your feeling like?
No, I think it is the perfect occasion to come back because these are two stalwarts who have defined Real Madrid over the years that they have been here. Modric came in 12, 13, like I think it was 12, 13 season. He came in and I've had the opportunity to watch the entire career at Madrid, so it's been a pleasure. Modric said it himself at the end of the match today when they were doing the stadium farewell thing. He said it's been an honor, it's been a pleasure to be here, and I think for us as fans, it's been an honor, it's been a pleasure to witness the greatness that Luka Modric has shown over the years, and we've been lucky. For me personally, I would say he's the greatest midfielder that I have watched play for Real Madrid. Uh, I think in a Real Madrid shirt, I haven't seen anybody do better than what Luka Modric has done on the pitch. Maybe some people might have differing opinions, and they would have valid points as well. But for me, in a Real Madrid shirt, I haven't seen anybody play in the midfield better than he did. And we're losing another great guy in Carleto, brilliant manager. I think there was something I heard on the Spanish media that they said that the biggest achievement for Carlo Ancelotti was he understood what Real Madrid is and what Real Madrid is not. And I think that sums it up perfectly. He came in, he understood the club, he adapted, and what a wonderful fairy tale it has been for us as fans. I think you mentioned, Sunil, that we started this podcast like I think 3 to 4 years ago, and the entire time that this podcast has been running, there's only been one Real Madrid manager that has been Carlo Ancelotti. And I mean, it's kind of rare for Real Madrid for this to happen because those of
Yeah.
us who've been a very long time fans, we know how unstable the position can be, how many managerial changes come and go. And these past 4 years, like they have been an anomaly because for 4 years, Carletto has been here guiding the ship. And I mean, we cannot deny that there have been moments where we thought that this should be the end, especially the 22-23 season, which was kind of disappointing, saved by the grace of the Copa del Rey victory, and Florentino being there was a strange benevolence to him because he always sacks managers for less, but he kept him on. Carlo gave us a wonderful season, but unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. I think this was the perfect time for him to go. And last but not least, I think Lucas Vazquez also deserves his moment. What a wonderful player he has been. I had my doubts when he came in. I preferred Hesse, but Lucas Vazquez has totally proven me wrong, and he's shown the qualities that he had, and why Real Madrid definitely needed a player like him.
Farooq, over to you, man. I would like to just, cherry pick this one particular thing that Mo mentioned. He may be right, he may be wrong, but, for me, who is an out and out Carlos stan, when I hear the word benevolence, from the side of Perez, I can sympathize or empathize with that sentiment, but also I don't think Carlo, unlike other managers, unlike so many of the other top world class coaches that we have seen in our ranks, Carlo has held a certain level of respect. I think he has demanded it and he has earned it. Not just by the way he carries himself, but I think the way he has gone against odds to win some major silverware. But Farooq, over to you, man. Quick thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, not, I mean, you guys have said it all. Like, you can't say anything else, regarding Carlo Ancelotti. This is just, the man he is. Like, he's a serial winner, and even added to that, he's an absolute gentleman. He's a coach that literally everyone, respects. He's a coach that, all his players love. So that's just saying that says all, like when you come to a club like Real Madrid and you're there for 4 straight seasons, it means that you're doing something very right. You're doing something absolutely right. And he's been able to, win the Champions League after Cristiano. Without Cristiano, he's been able to win the Champions League again without Karim Benzema. Like that shows, the wit that he has. That shows, that winning DNA that he has. And honestly, as Mo was saying, like since we started the pod, we've only known one manager. And as the saying goes, like the devil, is better than the angel that you do not know. But again, at the end of it all, like good things come to an end. Like, but if there's anything, is that we know that the spell that we had with Carlo Ancelotti across his 2 tenures, I think, is going to remain unmatched. I think, yeah, maybe Zidane, maybe not, but like I do think, like it's something that we have to just enjoy and, be ready for a very bumpy ride. Because if there was anything that Carlo does, is like Carlo was able to mask the deficiencies of the players, to mask the deficiencies of the team, and like try to put them in the position where they perform the best. So irrespective of whatever you gave him, he was just able to, to find the best recipe out of the players and, able to win trophies. So I do think that's something that's fair here with managers. You find in world football today, like everyone requires certain elements, certain players, certain styles, and certain tactics, certain environments to be able to perform. But with Carlo Ancelotti, that's not the case. Wherever you give him, he's able to perform like year in, year out, season in, season out, different clubs, different countries. So how he gets the end results, that's, debatable, but the point eventually he gets the results, he gets the job done. So that's just a thing with Carl. Like you never can deny that winning mentality that he has. And I do, think that we Real Madrid fans, will continue to look fondly upon him, especially for the turbulent moment that I think we're going to experience in the next, couple of months, will even make us appreciate what Carlo Ancelotti had done even more.
I still, stand by my statement that what Carlo did will be just. I do think it's pretty impossible to match up, even for the likes of Xabi Alonso, who even if he comes anywhere close to Carlo, I do think it will require a lot more investment, a lot more planning going into our transfer strategy and the way we mold our club for Xabi Alonso to be that successful. That just goes to show, like you said, Paru, how Carlo has adapted, how Carlo has outlived so many other coaches in this very hot seat, which is super unforgiving. This club has stakes unlike no other. It has standards unlike no other. It has expectations unlike no other. Um, I think it was Mo, me and Mo had this conversation, I think a couple of months back, where I put Carlo as my numero uno. And he was like, yeah, there's only one man above Carlo for me, and that's Zidane. I would have agreed to Mo, for me personally, until 2023. But then what happened last year, I think, gives Carlo the edge because of how flexible he was, how he found the solutions in the most unlikeliest scenarios in which nobody even gave him a prayer. For me, that just screams greatness. That just screams a manager who is never willing to give up, who is willing to absorb all the exterior pressure, all the noise, and then just convert them into titles, into just not mere trophies for trophy's sake, but the big boys. Um, Carlo, Luka Modric, Vazquez, to a little extent Vazquez, but the big two, they changed my life. I still remember how I was finding it very difficult in life to growing up, and life wasn't easy, and these guys just was a blessing from heaven. I felt like, because the amount of hardships that these guys have pulled me out of has given me strength to overcome, has given me yeah nights that I cannot honestly repay them back for. La Decima will be always special, and I'll say that until I die. There'll be no night like it. There'll be no trophy won like it. The drama, the weight, the heartbreak that led to it. More thoughts on La Decima quickly. The one trophy that changed basically our modern history.
I mean, I think you said pretty much everything. La Decima is the one trophy that Real Madrid chased for a long time. Those of us who've been following the club for a long time, like you and Farouk, we know the amount of pain that we had to go through, especially in the first decade of the century, when Real Madrid kept getting knocked out in the round of 16. I know the number of times I would. So I was a young kid, still in high school. I know it's difficult to believe now, but I was indeed one day a young kid. So I was there online fighting with a lot of people, trying to tell them that be like one of those other clubs fans, telling them this was going to be our year when everybody would come in, and sadly it never happened. And during that time, we also had to live through the infamous defeat in the Clásico, where Barcelona scored six at the Bernabeu, and I think that was one of the lowest points that I have experienced as a Real Madrid fan. And the next season, Mourinho comes in, and we still managed to lose 5-0 at the Camp Nou. So to go from there, and then suddenly is the night in Lisbon where Real Madrid are trailing 1-0. We finally thought that this was our moment. This was supposed to be the
Casillas error as well. I was
yeah. So this
devastated.
was supposed to be the moment. This was supposed to be our moment. Finally, when the promised La Decima, comes back to the Bernabeu. It's like 2002 when Zidane scored that wonderful volley. Real Madrid, like us, we've been crying out like we were irrelevant in Europe till Mourinho came back. So for that moment when Sergio Ramos scored that goal, and in the preceding days in the season, like we had a pretty good lead going into the title chase as well. But then Cristiano got injured, and whatever happened, and we kind of lost it. But of course, there was that Copa del Rey goal by Bale and the title that we won, so there was some consolation. But for Carlo Ancelotti, I think this is something really amazing, because this guy was on the brink of the sack, right? If that one goal by Sergio Ramos doesn't go in, Carlo Ancelotti is the Real Madrid manager only for 1 year, and the remaining five wouldn't have happened. But because that one goal went in, like you said, not only did it change the end of the season celebrations for him, it didn't change. Like it did, not only did it stop him from getting sacked, but it totally changed the history of Real Madrid. That's the next season wasn't as successful, but it set the stage for everything that came after. And I think Ancelotti's return wouldn't have happened if he hadn't won as a La Decima. So everything that came back, like came afterwards, is going to be defined by that one goal. And I think Sergio Ramos deserves immense credit for it. Carlo Ancelotti, he deserves a lot of credit for putting the team out, for making the changes that he did, and for instilling this team. The season before, everybody was like, the dressing room was fractured, everybody was fighting with everybody. But then he comes in, calms the whole situation down, and he truly set us up. Like I've always said, that Real Madrid that came afterwards was kind of like the tactics were laid down by Ancelotti. He described how we were going to defend for the next decade. He laid down the blueprint for everything that came afterwards. So, I mean, there are not enough words to describe how valuable that one season is in the modern history of Real Madrid.
Farooq, do you share the sentiment? Some would argue, Mourinho was the guy who set the stones, but then others would say Carlo basically polished them up
Uh,
and made us
just
team
Just
more
before
so.
Farouk goes, I just want to say this. So when I say that Carleto kind of laid down the blueprint for Real Madrid, Mourinho obviously did a lot of work because without Mourinho, we definitely don't get over the mental block. But the tactical side, I think Mourinho he had his own set of playing football
Oh yeah,
with Real Madrid, yeah.
yeah.
So he definitely laid down the foundation of the best counter-attacking team this world has ever seen. But then the tactics that actually took us over the hump, that won us the La Decima, that I believe were laid down by Ancelotti, and Real Madrid ever since then have followed that blueprint, even under Zidane, and Ancelotti second time. That's what my point is.
Over to you, Farooq.
Yeah, I agree. Like the point that Mo was making there at the end, because eventually, even when you look at the formations, they were different. Like, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mourinho was playing with a 4-2-3-1 formation, and actually Carlo Ancelotti brought the 4-3-3 eventually. And I mean, let's not forget, like, this guy won the Champions League with Di Maria playing as a central midfielder. You understand? So that's the thing. Like, everyone knows. Like, I've always been critical of the style of play, or this or that, and I've always said this, like, when you people say this is what Real Madrid have been, I've said, sorry, I do not agree with that, because what I watched when Carlo first came was a coach who was willing to adapt, was a coach who had ideas, was a coach who had a plan, was a coach who had, a way he wanted to play, was a coach who, was able to pass information to his players, was a coach that was able to, create patterns from his players, you know, and I totally agree with that. Like, when you say that the success that we achieved, in Europe actually was laid down, was actually building up on, or rather polishing, to borrow more words, polishing what, Carlo had developed in 2014, because more or less it's just, you build on that, you change the players, but more or less the idea is the same. The core of the players remain the same, so definitely, like, what Carlo has done, at least for the club in the, in this modern history, after that 2002, it's something that's absolutely invaluable. And I think one thing that Mo talked about is, I think it's always important, at least what I felt with Carlo, is that you always feel like Carlo is like one goal away from getting the sack, and that's just the thing. Like, you look at the goal in 2014, the goal gets scored, you go again back to the season where we had the whole Benzema heroics, the goals still get scored. You still look at the season where where Jude came in for the first year, he was scoring goals here, and like, these goals also keep getting scored. Like, when you look at the performances at an individual in certain moments, you kind of feel like, okay, like, this guy doesn't deserve to coach Real Madrid, but for somehow, for some way, he's able to put the players in the right frame of mind, in the right environment, in the right system that makes them thrive. So that way, like, those goals eventually show up. Those moments eventually happens. That you look at, okay, if you take away that moment, like, okay, Carlo is gonna get sacked, but this is who Carlo is. Like, he knows that his players are gonna show up. He knows that he's gonna put them in the right position. He's gonna put them in the right situation, and they're always gonna show up. So this is just the story of Carlo. It's always like, oh yeah, he's one goal away from this. He's one moment away from that. He's this away from that. But eventually, somehow, he always, finds a way to push the players to deliver. So I think that's also something that you have to appreciate a lot from Carlo Ancelotti. I think it's something that's lacking a lot from a lot of coaches, at the highest level. And I think it's also something that we will again come to appreciate more, I think, in the coming years, after, all is said and done, when we reflect back on what Carlo had achieved with Real Madrid, in the two stints that he had.
Mm. If it was incorporating BBC into a lineup, and the master stroke that was Di Maria, the Contrao Marcelo, interchange at times. Khedira Xabi Alonso playing, a pivotal role in midfield as well. You ban all the way into 2022, unlocking Vinicius, and then basically lighting the fire for probably the most devastating attacking duo in recent times. In the form of Benzema and Vinicius. Benzema eventually winning the Ballon d'Or because of it. There is a pattern there. Jude Bellingham coming up. I'm pretty sure if Jude Bellingham kept up his scoring exploits, and he eventually had a very, very telling say in the Champions League latter stages. He probably would have won the Ballon d'Or as well. So Carlo Ancelotti, unlike so many managers, has this innate ability. I don't think he follows his instincts. I do think he is a very good listener. He's someone who understands what someone wants, um, or what someone expects his teammates to help him. How his teammates are expected to help him thrive. I don't think most of the modern managers have that kind of an um, of a human side to them. I think that's what has pushed Carlo well beyond the realm of great managers and managers who has been successful. Um, Also, if you look at some of Carlo's greatest defeats as well, you would attribute them not just purely to a tactical uh, perspective as well. It almost feels like he is a broken man on the sidelines when I watch him, because he puts so much faith, so much trust in his players on the pitch that sometimes I think it takes a toll on him. I know for a fact that it took a toll on his staff as well. So I could only imagine what he had to go through, especially this season. I just wished and hoped, it would have ended on a better note. But like we say, most of our heroes, who we worship, they eventually bow out on the wrong side of their careers. Apart from a very blessed few, like we saw with Tony Cruz, who was man enough, who had the gall to actually call his career himself. But some others, yeah, they tend to go down this route. But nevertheless, what Carlo has achieved, like Farouk said, it's gonna stand the test of time. 20, 30 years on from now, like how we used to talk about Frank Munoz, how we used to talk about um, uh, running out of I can't I can't recall all of a sudden, but the
I think you
Spanish
meant Del Bosque.
Del Bosque, Vicente Del Bosque, who basically is one of our greatest modern day managers. We would definitely pair Carlo up along with them, put them on the same pedestal. Zidane definitely had, the higher highs, definitely had the more glamorous stint. Arguably, his second stint was still very, very solid. Had to revert back to basics. But what Carlo did, I do think is a true is a true reflection of Madridismo, a never give up attitude, a never say die attitude. Um, but coming on to Modric, the very guy who basically assisted the goal for the La Decima equalizer. Um, his career, I was a keen observer of him at Spurs. I wasn't very into football back then, but I used to still love watching Modric play. And when he came to our team, I was very unsure about where he stood, because we had the likes of Kaká, who wasn't nearly him anymore. But there was Ozil, there was Xabi Alonso, there was Kedira. So I was very unsure how Modric would fit into a system like ours. And from what I remember, especially at Spurs, he used to excel at 10, and he was more of an attacking midfielder. And I used to think, you know what, like Ozil is in his prime. How is he gonna basically displace him? But then the Ozil transfer happened, and the rest is history. Modric moved a bit deeper into midfield, and the way he has maintained his consistency from all the way back then to now, this season he's been one of our best players. I mean, it's funny, right? A man who is about to be 40 in September is still one of our better players. Um, how do you kind of put that into a sentence? How do you basically try to gauge someone who has stood above his peers for such a long period of time?
For me, Luka Modric, like you said, when he came in, we weren't exactly sure what to expect from him. You mentioned that you had the pleasure of watching him at Spurs. I did not, because I didn't watch Premier League much. So for me, when he came in, my understanding, like rightly or wrongly, was that he preferred a little bit playing a little bit deeper and he liked the ball to, he liked the ball to be in front of him than the ball to come to him in the higher up areas. And we had Ozil. The issue that I saw with Modric coming in, and one that you have rightly pointed out, is the fact that we were kind of trying to get him to rotate with Ozil, and I think that didn't work out. And luckily for him, and I think Ancelotti deserves immense credit for it. Ancelotti understood that playing Modric higher up wasn't going to work, so he kind of put him a little deeper alongside Xabi Alonso, and that somehow kickstarted his career. I think the turning point for Modric's career, like so many of the highlights of his career, was the long shot that he took against United at Old Trafford. I think that was the moment where everybody suddenly realized, okay, this guy isn't like just a scrub; he is something. Funnily enough, yesterday I was going through Twitter and there were a lot of screenshots from the time that Luka Modric joined Madrid, and a lot of people were saying that this is a player that doesn't have the level for Real Madrid. They basically were calling him a scrub, and these were the kind of guys that a lot of people follow these days as well. And today, all of them, like when he's leaving, everybody's saying like this is probably one of the greatest players that the game of football has ever seen. And I think the biggest credit that you can give to Luka Modric is the fact that even at 40, like you said, he is one of the better players in this team today. His you know how long he has lasted, his longevity is like a credit to him. And I think I've rarely seen players be 40 and still deliver the way he has. I don't know if it's down to modern medicine or what. I mean, we still have LeBron playing in here and still delivering. So Luka Modric is another big example of it. Whereas previously, 33, 34, the player was done. But Luka Modric has he's been timeless. He has persisted and he has delivered time and again. And Real Madrid have been much better for it. And for me, Luka Modric, I think the best way to describe him is how his peers tell him. I think there was an interview being done today post match with Turiantes from Sociedad, and he said
Yeah.
he said that this guy is my idol. So when players around you are telling you that you are their idols, I mean, what bigger credit can be there for them? And like I said, for me, Luka Modric is the best midfielder that I have watched play in a Real Madrid shirt.
Standing ovation after standing ovation at every away ground. I mean, for a club like us who has a lot of enemies, right? Like we have enemies not just in Spain but all over the world, right? Like people just uh, can't stand the side of us winning stuff. I mean, it's normal, it's expected, right? But Luka Modric, I think, has basically uh, been the one guy who I think even rival fans they just take their time to appreciate, take their time to acknowledge that this is a player that is beyond agenda, to be honest. But Farouk, when you hear stuff like that, when you hear rival players, when you hear his peers, basically, younger guys as well, who just are full of praise, full of admiration, um, how can we even remotely come close to appreciating what this man was for our club? His top moments as well in the Champions League, uh, the Rodrigo connection against Chelsea, the assist to Cristiano, long ranger after long ranger, Mallorca, Deportivo La Coruña, Sasuna, so many of them. Sevilla last year, Girona this year. This man was the complete package, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that's the thing. Like Luka Modric is on a whole different level, and that's the thing. Like you look at generational players. I mean, I think Jude is 21. Luka Modric is going to be 40 in 2 months, if I'm not mistaken. So literally, like you do the math, like Luka Modric literally started playing football professionally even before Jude was born. You understand? So that just puts that into perspective. And as you guys have rightly pointed, like this guy is going to be 40 in a couple of months, and he's still better than 90% or even 95% of the midfielders that play football in the world today. You understand? So that just is a testament. I don't know, whatever, if it's modern medicine or whatever, but I mean, there are a lot of people that are his age and we know where they are or what they're doing right now. So, like you just have to tip your hat to the guy. And, I'm just going to go even more saying he's the best midfielder he has seen in a Real Madrid jersey. I think for me, in my opinion, he's just the best midfielder I've seen play football, full stop. There is no, extra layer to that. And the additional thing about Luka Modric is also like, the level of, how should I say, the level of I don't know or I don't know, the level of respect that he commands, and because of the way he plays, he just goes there, playing with the with the knowledge that, okay, like, I'm better than you and I'm gonna beat you at that. That's why I feel like, opposition fans and opposition players, like, respect and appreciate what he he has been doing, and we've seen, standing ovations even last year, which I thought was going to be, the end of the end of the road for him. Like, we saw a lot of standing ovations, at stadiums last year, even this year as well. We've seen that as also. And even we saw when, he was going to be subbed out, not just the Real Madrid team, also like the Sociedad team also, joined the guard of honor of that. So that just shows you, what Luka Modric is. And I think the one thing that you never will take away from Luka Modric, that he's going to be the person who broke, the monopoly, or rather the duopoly of the Ballon d'Or between Cristiano and Messi. You understand? So that's something that you will never take away. Like, these are literally two giants. Then, like, for Luka Modric to be able, to take that away from them, for Luka Modric to be able to lead Croatia, to quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, at international tournaments, a country, I think, of around 5 million people or even less, over and over for successive competitions, like, that's a lot, honestly. And, like, yeah, Luka Modric, let's not forget about what his story was as well. It's not just about, like, fitting in team or whatever. He was voted as the worst transfer, in the summer of 2013 as well, when he came to Real Madrid. So, all that, puts into perspective, the levels, the strides that Luka Modric has taken to become, the player that he was at his peak, the player that the service that he gave for Real Madrid, and even the player that he still is today. You understand? So, of course, like, it's when you look at it from, an emotional perspective, it's a really sad situation that, you see Luka Modric, bowing out like this. But you also try to kind of, look at it, it's business as usual. Football is a very, unforgiving game. It's a cutthroat business. But yeah, like, Luka Modric also is just one of those people that, you cannot, quantify their value to what they have given to this club.
So many players in our recent history has tried to, sustain their level and be at the club. We know so many top legends who, tried to break the 35, 34-year-old barrier, um, couldn't successfully manage to do so. And then you have Luka Modric, who, I think, yeah, we could argue he took pay cuts to stay. He accepted a rotational role to stay, but still, I'm pretty sure his quality, his leadership, within the dressing room, and the way he carried himself also played a huge part in him. Yeah, basically prolonging his stint with us. Also, I do think we have to address this, right? I'm not sure how true this is, but I've heard a lot about it. While I was growing up, recently as well. But you guys probably would know better than me because I haven't really looked into it as much. But are the rumors of him actually having an admiration for Barcelona before he joined us? Was there any truth to it? Do you guys know or have read something on it over the years? Um,
It's been a while, so I don't exactly remember that.
mm,
But the admiration wasn't like he was a big fan of Barcelona growing up or something like that. It's just like
mhm.
he's a big club. He kind of liked how they played or something. Because I think I read about it in his book,
Okay.
but it's been a while, so I don't exactly remember. But yeah, I do remember his reaction to, when his agent told him. Again, it was in the book. When his agent told him Madrid were interested in him, and they were like, there were no two thoughts about it. He said like, it's Madrid, you have to go there. So it wasn't like he's like, oh man, this is a rival club. I kind of think that reaction was more with Ozil. I kind of read his stuff, and he was like, he was a Barcelona guy, and he's like, I want to go to Barcelona, but then he had this meeting with Mourinho, and then he had this meeting with Guardiola, and it's like, Mourinho showed me more respect, so I'm going to go to Real Madrid. With Modric, it wasn't that strong. I do think he definitely he might have admired Barcelona, but it wasn't like, he's a big fan. It wasn't like he wasn't like us, sitting on YouTube making podcasts supporting Barcelona. It was more like, yeah, this is a good team.
Fair enough, fair enough. Because yeah, I used to be a bit disappointed reading that as a young man, but I used to carry the thought that even if someone who doesn't necessarily, was the biggest fan of our team, but then they come to our side and change our fortunes forever. I mean, they're part of the fabric. they're part of history. They're part of what we are. Luka Modric, there you go. His accolades, his triumphs over the last 12, 13 years speaks for itself. Yeah, Cruz last year, when it happened, it broke me. But then I knew, once Luka happens, I wouldn't be able to have the composure that I thought I had last year, and that happened. I'm not really sure how this void will get filled. I'm not sure if any regen, FM regens, real life regens can, fill the void of this great maestro. He just is one of those players I don't think won't happen for a long, long time. People might come and go who might possess lightning in a bottle, who can replicate some of his mastery for a brief stint, let's say 2 to 3 years. But to be this consistent, to be this humble in success, in defeat, yeah, it'll take a long, long, long long time for us to actually unearth another gem like him. Wish him all the best. I hope I can see him at the World Cup, and I hope he joins some place that keeps his level high enough to dazzle us again. At the World Cup, I hear rumors about the MLS, which I hope are not true. I don't think he has enough in his legs to play for some of the big boys. Maybe not in the Premier League, but definitely, in the Serie A, maybe in the Bundesliga, who knows? Luka Modric, I do think he can contribute massively to a club who has intentions to win major honors. Wish him all the best. Wish him nothing but the best. Yeah, he was one of my favorite players, and probably the love of my life in terms of players who played for us in midfield. There won't be another Luka Modric. Moving on, let me look at a few comments before we touch upon Vazquez as well. Big up Ashik. He was mentioning it was difficult to see Luka walk away. And the last time I endured something like this difficult was when we said farewell to Zizou. I wasn't here. I think Mo was here. Not sure about Farouk. But yeah, I was way too young. Ashik was mentioning 11 years ago, this very day, Carlo won us La Decima. Life comes full circle. Yeah, I completely forget to address that. That is truly a special way to cap it off. A great leader, manager, and mentor moves on next stage of his career. Forever indebted to you, Don Carleto. Yeah, massive job as well for him at Brazil. I'm a bit fortunate that I do support Brazil in the international tournaments, and I get to watch what he tries to do with this very silly looking, Seleção. I'll be honest. Ashik was mentioning the very first piece of the great KCM midfield bid of the year today, bringing the glorious KCM era to a close, setting a new gold standard and passing the torch to the next generation to form their own legacy. I think we should just give this a toss. I mean, it will be very biased, right? But I want to know, from both of you guys, why don't KCM get the appreciation that, the Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta still does to this day? I see polls getting massively voted in favor of the Barcelona trio, where we are basically sideshows. They say play against glory, as in KCM only had the trophies to back their argument, whereas the Barcelona trio always had so much more going for them inside the pitch.
I'll let Farouk answer first.
I mean, for me, I think it's about consistency. The point is that, like, for like also in the peak era of the KCM, like the point is you look at it like how many league titles have Luka Modric won? I think 4. He has 6 Champions League. He has 4. To put that into perspective, and I think that's something that people measure that with. And honestly, one thing I also think about is that when you look at the period that we had KCM, I think there was just maybe 2 instances where we're like undoubtedly regarded as the best team in the world. Even there were instances where when we won the Champions League and still like we weren't regarded as the best team in the world. So I think these are the things, and also I think another thing that plays a lot of importance is what this guy's achieved for Spain as well.
Mm.
You understand? Like winning the World Cup and the Euros back to back, I think with the literally more or less the same, group of players, the same group of midfielders, I think also like fits into that narrative as well. So I think more or less that's the other thing, because I feel to some extent you kind of, even what Zidane was saying as well, like first and foremost you have to dominate locally, you have to win the league. So like that's why when Zidane came back in the second stint, he was so keen to win the league. And, you have to dominate locally, you have to win the league. So when was the last time Real Madrid retained the league title? You understand? So I think these are things that feed into that. So like I think like when you talk about moments, KCM has better moments. But I think the argument that would be for Iniesta, Sergio V and Xavi would be the fact that they had what's it called? They had more sustained success, if that makes more sense.
First of all, I
No.
would like to point out that today marked the return of Sergio B. Well, moving on, I think I completely agree with what Farouk said. For when you look at Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets, I think the biggest thing that goes in their favor is the fact that they played together nationally as well. I kind of want to point out the fact that I don't think it was exactly the same setup, because Xabi Alonso was also playing in one
Yeah,
of those
part of the
games, and
2012, right?
and
2012.
Iniesta was a little further forward. But I mean, the thing is, like, narratives form and they're difficult to buck the trend. Uh, Once the narrative formed, and the first time that we saw Sergio Busquets, Xavi Hernandez, and Andres Iniesta play together, Barcelona won the sextuple. Like they won 6 titles. It's difficult to beat that narrative. Whereas the first time we saw Casemiro, Kroos, and Modric play together was in 2016, when Real Madrid, Rafa Benitez had been sacked and we were kind of struggling. Zidane comes back in and gives Casemiro a chance, and the rest is history. And I completely agree with Farouk on this point as well, that the KCM was like a little bit shorter duration, I guess, because if you see for the period which they were undisputed, it's kind of like maybe 2016, 16, 17 was the time when Real Madrid were undisputedly the best team in the world. And that one, 17, 18, we kind of struggled in the league. So, and 18, 19, we all know what happened. 19, 20 again. So I think KCM also struggles because of the fact that there wasn't a dominant pairing in front of them from 18-19 onwards. Like from 18-19 till the time Ancelotti came, it was just Benzema carrying the attack. So Real
Yeah.
Madrid were a little pedestrian. So, those things, how the team played, kind of influence it. And I guess that taints a little bit in comparison to Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets. But for me personally, and I think for a lot of the people, they are right up there, even if they wouldn't put them ahead of them. For me, at least, I would, being a Real Madrid fan, I would put them ahead of everyone. But then overall, I kind of think like even if they don't get the same level of respect, even if people don't put them as number one, they're still number two for most of the people. So you would be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't think that they were one of the best in the world has ever seen. And I think all these polls, uh, whoever puts them, they will admit to the fact that even if maybe they weren't like superior to them, at least they were somewhere around them.
And I also do think a lot of it feeds off of the romanticism surrounding, probably I would still say the greatest club side that I've seen in my lifetime, the Barcelona sextuple side, and also the side in 2011 as well, 2010-11. But the major talking point down the line, at least for generations after us, would be why couldn't, in my opinion, this should be the conversation. In my opinion, why couldn't Barcelona's great trio pull together the string of performances if they were that good? If they had Villa, if they had Messi, if they had the likes of Henry for a brief period, if they had Pedro, all these great players, why couldn't they quite do what KCM did for Madrid over 3 years? I would like to know. I mean, it's cup
For the
competition.
Champions League?
Yeah.
So the thing
It's
is,
cup
like,
competition.
you are comparing two different competitions. The first point you made was the fact that why couldn't they do it consistently, right?
Mm.
So they have a much better argument for doing
Consistency
it
in the league,
consistently. Yeah.
definitely, but
So
in the
I
Champions
think
League,
when you look at a period of time, they have been a lot more consistently dominant. I mean, they started dominating, when was it, like 2008, 9, and till like 12, 13, they were consistently very good. And there was no doubts about that Barcelona squad. They couldn't win it in a way we did, but they were still always there towards the end of it. And I don't think anybody can be held to a standard and said, "Oh, why didn't they win Champions League consistently? Why didn't they
This will be
repeat?"
my
So,
this will
so,
be my
so the
fight
fact
back,
that Real
to be
Madrid did
honest.
it, the fact that Real Madrid did it, is what elevates KCM to that level. You get me? Because if you remove those three, then and only look at the other performances, they wouldn't quite get there. But because they did it, they are able to be in that conversation. And for me, Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets, they demonstrated their performances in the national competition in the domestic leagues, and even in the Champions League, they weren't scrubs. I mean, they were reaching semifinals, so it's not like just because they didn't reach the final, they're suddenly a bad team. And for me, the fact that Real Madrid with Cruz, Casemiro, and Modric were able to three-peat, it kind of puts them in that upper echelon. And these two midfield combinations are like in a conversation of their own because of their achievements. So I like, as a Real Madrid fan, obviously I hate them. I deeply dislike them. And for me,
I have
they're the
so much
most.
spite for them.
Yeah,
I'll be
those
honest.
three are the most rubbish players of all time. I mean, Xavi Hernandez, go sniff some grass. But like, when you're kind of being neutral and you want to give everybody the credit they deserve. So I
When
think
it comes to them, I can be neutral towards any Barcelona side, but them, those three guys, and Guardiola's great Barcelona side, yeah, fuck that. But yeah, I guess you guys have a point. I'm beaten fair and square, but I still this would be my argument, right?
So
If
if I
KCM
was
could
if
do
I
it,
was picking a team, there's no way I would pick Xavi, Iniesta, and Busquets for my team. I always go with Cruz, Casemiro, and Modric. But I mean, I don't want to say that they were a total scrub. So they deserve the respect that they get.
they were in scrubs. I didn't say they were scrubs, but Ashik was mentioning also Carvajal is the last remaining player from the Decima squad and the 3P generation, and his recent post seems like his best season, maybe his last, bringing the curtain down on a generation for good. Yeah. Ashik was mentioning on a bittersweet day, I just wanted to point out that to Sunaid that Mbappe won the Pichichi and possibly the Golden Boot. Yeah, kudos to him, 0 trophies. I know how much you and I care about individual trophies. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you should care about it a lot more. But Mbappe, to be honest, his second goal was absolutely incredible. The finish, the touch. I think he looked electric all day. Tried his level best, but yeah, I think both teams just took this as a training drill. To be honest, there was no intensity. To be honest, but yeah. Hashik was mentioning a shout out to today's referee as well. In his last match, as much as we take the piss out of them, but we are Madrid, not Barcelona. We celebrate all individuals who reaches the top of their career. Right then, farewell to Lucas Vazquez, a great servant of the club and a glorious career with his boy club. Quickly, Farouk, Vazquez. What does Vazquez mean to you? Memed quite often by rival fans, by our own fans. The memes were not too serious until this season, which basically, yeah, for me, this was his worst season. I never imagined, in my wildest dreams that Vazquez would stoop to a low as this, as this season. I've always thought of Vazquez being, a 6, 7, 7.5 easy per game player. Could step into multiple positions. Had the Midas touch. I'll be very honest. He will be limited in his capabilities, but when he got stuff right, it just looked effortless and a true Madridista. Talk to me about Vazquez, Faru.
I mean, we have Sergio Ramos 94 Lisbon, then we have, Milan 2016 for Lucas Vazquez as well. So that's just, the player that he will always be, like taking, the responsibility of taking the first penalty kick, with the way he dispatched that in the moment of that immense pressure, says a lot, literally like summarizes the player that Lucas Vazquez is. This season was very unfortunate, but honestly, like, was I expecting this? I absolutely expected this from Lucas Vazquez. I think I and a lot of fans knew what Lucas Vazquez is, and we know what to expect from Lucas Vazquez. But just that we were so frustrated that this is the only option that we had left. That's why, the pressure, like, that's why we were piling up on Lucas Vazquez. But also, like, we have to appreciate that this person is willing to let's not forget, Vazquez is not a fullback. Vazquez is not a fullback, but he's, willing to sacrifice to cover for the team. And I've always said this, what Lucas Vazquez is. He's an absolute liability on defense. On offense, there is an end product, but on defense, there is absolutely nothing there. He's most likely going to be out of position. Even if he's in position, he's going to, make a rash tackle and it's going to end up with a penalty. So this is just the thing, like, we know what Lucas Vazquez is. The club knows what Lucas Vazquez is. But what happened was, like, we overestimated, or rather, like, of course, you did not anticipate what was going to happen to Dani Carvajal. This is just the thing, you understand? And then what happened? Carvajal also happened. And then alongside a series of other events, all of a sudden you're starting to play, an academy player as your starting center back as well. You're starting to play a central midfielder as your starting center back. So like the defensive line actually there was no continuity. You understand? There was no also fluidity there as well. Because of this, like Lucas Vazquez became much more exposed. I understand like this season was an absolute low, but I felt like the club did not put him in the right position to shine.
100%.
He was absolutely left exposed, and there was nothing he could have done. And for me, that doesn't take away from anything that Lucas Vazquez represented to me, which was like Lucas Vazquez was, alongside Nacho, the absolute representation of what Real Madrid is. What Castilla players should strive to be. You understand? When the team needs a body to do a job, you go in there and you do the absolutely best. I mean, this season I've said this many times. Vinicius Junior doesn't care. Rodrigo at certain instances did not care. Jude Bellingham at certain instances didn't give a fuck. But you can never ever see that about Lucas Vazquez. He's going to be at fault for a goal, but it's not because he did not try. It's just because of this is the shortcoming that he had. And this is what, this is what this guy embodies. Like, he's going to put this all there. We know that he's not good enough. Everyone knows this. At least for the past couple of seasons when he's been playing a fullback, he's not good enough to be, a right back for a team that is competing at the highest level, especially with what Real Madrid is competing. We know the level at Real Madrid is competing. He's not good enough. But the point is, the club did not also put him in the position to perform well. But he has never complained. He put his head down, played week in, week out, getting exposed, getting ridiculed, but he really did not care. He kept giving it his best. So I think Lucas Vazquez is a role model for what, Castilla players should look up to. Like, okay, this is a player that goes onto the pitch, plays with superstars, absolute superstars, but it doesn't look out of place. He gives his best 100% on the pitch, and no one can ever doubt that. You can doubt his ability, but you can never doubt his effort, which is more than enough. And because of that, as I said, like for me, like Lucas Vazquez, especially after Milan, will always, remain just, an absolute legend, a great servant of this club, no doubt.
Over the years, the three-peat, what came after, the inevitable low after Cristiano, the resurgence after that. I would always fondly remember Vazquez as one of those guys who was, all of that. He was never on the outside. He was never, someone who basically, stayed at the club hoping that he would get something going. He stepped up and proved himself over and over again in so many different positions, in so many different eras, with, let's be honest, very, very different players. The likes of Cristiano to the likes of Jovic, Mariano Diaz. He was always the constant. People forget because of these last few years, the last couple of seasons, majorly, how bad of a defender that he is now. But I do fondly remember that he used to step in, maybe when not being overly reliant on him, step up and really do an amazing job, at wing back. Even tracking back as a winger, he just, impressed me a lot. I do think I never had anything bad to say about Vazquez up until this season. This season, I was almost forced to be put in that position because I have to be unbiased. My biasness, has clouded my judgment over so many of the players that I love. But there comes a point where I have to basically, say stuff as it is supposed to be said, right? But it is to Vazquez's credit that even when players dropped off, even when our own fans tried to seek out the players who were trying to hide in an off-season. Vazquez was absolutely there, front and center. Um, his ability to basically, mask his deficiencies by being, super hardworking. His ability to win fouls in the area, super underrated. His crosses. I mean, how many people can really, at least for me, in my time following our club, I do think he's the best crosser of the ball from the wings ever. I don't think he puts guys like Gareth Bale and Cristiano to shame, because he is that good with whip crosses, whether it be from knockdowns or from direct headers, volleys. Vasquez's corners always was a get out of jail card for us, especially during the 16-17 season. But over to you, Mo. Lucas Vazquez, for me, an absolute legend.
Okay, the only thing I agree with you is Lucas Vazquez is an absolute legend. Crosses, come on, man. Let's not go there. But yeah,
That's your viewpoint. That's my viewpoint. That's it.
I would address like something Farouk said. I think Farouk, there are two things I disagree with you on. The first thing was you said the 16 final in Milan is going to be the lasting image of Lucas Vazquez. Unfortunately, that is not going to be the lasting image of Lucas Vazquez as much as I want it to be. For me, that was the moment I fell in love with the player. But unfortunately, what has happened over the last couple of seasons is always going to taint his memory in everybody's mind. And the lasting image of Lucas Vazquez is going to be what happened this season. I don't want that to be the image that Lucas Vazquez leaves, but it is going to be the image that Lucas Vazquez leaves. For me personally, Lucas Vazquez represents everything that is good about a player, and I do not want to limit it to just Castilla players. I think Lucas Vazquez is the image of the kind of player that the Bernabeu loves. He's somebody who totally demonstrates his commitment. He's always committed to the field, like you guys have rightly pointed out. You said when shoulders might droop, uh, his shoulders never dropped. He was always ready to fight. He embodies the values that Real Madrid demands of its players. He personifies what the club is about. He has his limitations, and I think Suned, you and I had these arguments last year as well, where I said that Lucas Vazquez, he's good at what he does, but he's very limited at in what he does, and that is going to be the lasting image of Lucas Vazquez going forward and for all the time. Lucas Vazquez as a right back had one good season in my opinion, and that was the the 2021 season, where Zidane was extremely defensive and he covered up for a lot of his deficiencies. Ever since Carlo Ancelotti came back, I remember the first season when he kind of played Lucas Vazquez at right back, and it didn't work out because Carlo Ancelotti the first few games was very adventurous, and Lucas Vazquez naturally got exposed, and there were some arguments between him and Ancelotti, and I think that is kind of that kind of exemplifies what Lucas Vazquez is about. As long as you cover for his deficiencies, he is a very serviceable player. But once his deficiencies start getting exposed, that is when we kind of understand that this is not a right back. This is not the player that Real Madrid needed at that moment. The second thing I disagree with you, Farouk, was the fact that you said that he's the player that Castilla players should look up to. I don't think so. I think Castilla players can be have other role models to look up to, and there are other things that they can do and achieve in this team. I think Raul Asensio this season has been a good example for them. That if they keep their heads, there's a certain level they can reach. I mean, this is no disrespect to Lucas Vazquez, because I do think he took a role and he delivered on that role. He did the best that he could.
This is no disrespect, but then you state the fact that he isn't the one that people should look up to. I mean, make it make sense more. Come on.
He's not the level that Castilla pressure aspire to be at.
Okay.
I get what Mo is saying, because the point is like you want to achieve the very best, that you want. Like you want to aim for the stars and then fall among the cloud or whatever the saying goes. I don't know.
And for me, I think the image that Lucas Vazquez is leaving, I agree with you, Farouk, when you say that it's because the board put in that situation. But I kind of think that, to a certain level, Ancelotti also deserves some of the blame. That he kept sticking with him in the important games when when the blueprint was there for everyone to see what Real Madrid could succeed with this season. And Ancelotti still did not want to go there. He still kept playing Lucas Vazquez right back for whatever reason. And Real Madrid struggled for it. So I think we did a disservice to him over the last year. But before that, Lucas Vazquez was definitely the player that, Real Madrid, the Shield demanded. And he always tried to put his best foot forward. I completely agree with you guys when you say that he exemplifies what Real Madrid is all about. And I hope that wherever he goes, he does his best because he's a very talented player. He's a very talented winger. And, even before Real Madrid, there's a reason why the club decided to bring him back. He demonstrated his qualities at Espanyol. Sadly, I mean, this happens to everyone. This time comes for everyone. Everybody goes down from their level, and it's come for Lucas Vazquez as well. But the time that he spent here, apart from the last season and the trophies that he won, are like it is. You cannot argue with those. So for me, Lucas Vazquez is definitely going to be one of the best, one of the best servants that the club has had. He did whatever was needed to be done, and now it's time to move on, I guess.
I'll never forget, his assist to Ramos in the Super Cup final against Sevilla, which, Carlo eventually scored the winner. The pen that he won against Juve, 92nd minute or something. Again, Cristiano scored against Buffon. His winner in the Clásico against Barcelona, 3 years ago. Very, very crucial in the title race. His header against Alaves, I mean, who expected him to bag a header in the 93rd minute last season away? Crucial 3 points. So many moments like that. Vazquez has stepped up. Like that. Maybe that's just me. I'm a bit of a sentimental person when it comes to some of my legends. People have absolutely completely shunned any debate between Nacho and Vazquez, who is the bigger Castilla homegrown legend in your opinion. I would argue with them all along that they're pretty neck and neck, but because Nacho had a pretty stellar end to his career, especially captaining his side to a Champions League, and then starting in the final, starting in one of the high profile games, locking out Haaland and whatnot. It definitely affected his stocks.
I think even if you remove Nacho's last season from his career, Nacho still is like head and shoulders above Lucas. Like Nacho is one of the best Castilla players that have ever played for Real Madrid. So
I agree. But for the time they played with us, both of them, for me, I think they were pretty neck and neck. But that's just me. Maybe I'm being a bit partial. I love Vazquez too much, but yeah, I wish him all the best. I heard there are some interest from clubs in La Liga, maybe in Saudi, but yeah, I really hope he gets the bag he deserves. What a brilliant player! Part of three different generations of winning major honors. But yeah, a few more of the comments before we slowly start to wrap this up. Ashi was mentioning we are also grateful to Vallejo for his service to the club and wish him the best, a career with Madrid where he has won more Champions Leagues than City, PSG, Arsenal, Atleti combined. Yeah, I think we have set our pieces on Vallejo, way too much. Probably more times than the number of occasions that he actually came on and played a part for us. Ashi was also mentioning the Club World Cup may be Xabi's debut, but August is when the new era of Madrid officially begins. What Carlo pulled off in the 23-24 season is impossible for any managers to accomplish with the injuries and shortage of players he had. Right. Ashi was also mentioning Mourinho laid the blueprint for that disciplined defense and the counter-attack. Everything that was missing beyond that was all Carlo, and Zizou was beneficiary of that. Ashi was mentioning Luka admired Barcelona as a kid. And during that time, Barcelona had a dream team with Romario, Stoichkov, sorry. So it's natural to be a Barcelona fan. Those days, he was a Barcelona fan, but not a diehard fan. Right. I mean, Romario was a pretty brilliant player, to be honest. Ashik was mentioning at least I'll get to see Luka on June the 18th against Hilal in Miami. One last time, you're a lucky man. Random guy says, Ala Madrid. Ashi was saying, it's an emotional day when the always composed Florentino was also shedding tears. That alone tells you what Carlo and Luka means to a beloved club. Right. Any final thoughts quickly, Farouk? Luka Modric, Vazquez, Carlo, three pillars of what made our club such a massive success over the last decade, bid goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, they've been phenomenal servants to the club. I'm just gonna borrow, what Ten Hag was saying, eras come to an end, so that's just the thing, like there is no like you cannot I want to see like it's
Out
like
of all the great legends that our game has seen, you chose Ten Hag. Okay, fair.
I mean, this is
Goodness me, man. Holy shit. Okay.
the point here is this. The
I mean,
point here is
Farouk
this,
wouldn't be Farouk unless he was doing these things.
Yeah, this is just a classic Farouk, but yeah, go
No,
on.
I mean, but this is just the reality. Eras come to an end, and I think like for the club to take the next step, this needed to happen. This is just the reality of things. For the club to take the next step, this needed to happen. The only issue I had with the fact is that like why did they have to leave Modric, on the I don't know whatever it is, but like why did they have to like leave it to the last minute to decide that they don't want to renew with Modric? And so I kind of feel like that's the thing that actually like I felt was unfair to like
Farouk, but there's something you should remember. Luka Modric wouldn't have been here this season if it wasn't for Toni Kroos retiring. So, like, if Toni Kroos had stayed on, Luka Modric would have been renewed last year.
I agree.
So
I
this
have
is like,
no issue with that. I have no issue with that. I'm just saying like why would you like because based on what I read, it's like Luka Modric literally offered himself to the team. Like, okay, whatever needs to be done, I'm gonna accept whatever they offer.
so the thing is like Luka Modric's career renewals always happen during this time. This is when the conversation happens, and I guess this was just the time that they had the conversation, and they said like unfortunately, this is not going to continue any longer. And I kind of understand that, especially after a season you've had. This season, more than any other, has demonstrated the fact that Real Madrid badly needs to lay the foundation for the future. In the attack, we might have a new setup, but in the midfield, we do sorely lack it. So I guess what I'm saying is like it was a painful process, but it had to be done.
I mean, last week afternoon, I told him even before the news came out that for me personally, I feel like Luka Modric, it's time to go. I totally agree. Like, I mean, remove the whole sentiments in there. Like, as I said, like for me, he's the best midfielder I've seen in my life. That's I think that there is no more other level of respect I can give to him. I absolutely understand that he has to go for you to go to the next phase. That's why I use the term errors come to an end, because the point is, I feel like unless Luka Modric left, we would not be able to move into the next phase. This is just what I felt personally. So I feel like, and when you look at the number of midfielders we have as well, like Luka Modric was someone taking a spot. So like, you don't know what's going to happen. We need new midfielders to come in. Like Luka Modric is still better than 95% of the midfielders that are there on the market. But the point is only 1% of the 1% of midfielders play for Real Madrid. This is just the reality of the South. You understand? If he's better than, so I understand that, but I just felt like, telling him more earlier could have, allowed for better farewells and better preparation and stuff like that. But anyways, I'm still glad that he was able to get the farewell that he deserved, to be at the Bernabeu more or less. And also, I think for Carlo, everyone knows what my view on Carlo Ancelotti has always been like. He's someone who's like, okay, if you need trophies, he's gonna be there. He's gonna deliver the trophies. But the question now becomes like, with the type of players you have, do you want to go every single big game you've played in your whole life being the underdog? I mean, come on, that should not be the case. We shouldn't be going to every single knockout tie being an underdog. Like that's absolutely crazy. Yeah, we win or we don't win, or we lose or we don't win, or we whatever happens. You should not go into these games, in such patterns, especially with the amount of players you have. Carlo Ancelotti, absolute legend, like the best manager in the history of the club. The trophies are there to show for it, but I just feel like also it's a time to make the change. So, but one thing I do know is that, and I have accepted that, is that whatever's going to happen, we're not going to reach the highs of Carlo Ancelotti, not in 1 or 2 years. And I believe that it's a process. You understand? And I want to trust in the process. And I just hope that also the club is willing to trust in the process the way they trust in Carlo Ancelotti's process as well. Because now they're going to go get Xavi in. I don't know what Xavi is going to do, what system he's going to play or not. It's going to be very unfortunate if we get sacked after 6 months or 8 months. And then we revert back to Zidane again, or whoever is it that's going to be the caretaker. I just want the club to, give this person time to implement his stuff. I know this is not what Real Madrid does, but the point is, if you're taking a punt on a very young manager, then you have no choice but to. This is just the reality of things. So I do know it most likely might be a very slow and maybe painful process, but I do hope that, the superstars that we have in the team from next season will step up, will get more directions, will get more precise information of what they need to do on the pitch and what's required of them. And hopefully, we can at least enjoy the fruit of the squad that we have.
Yeah, when Farouk says that under Carlo we go into most high profile games being the underdog, I get where he's coming from. It is pretty annoying after a certain point, right? Especially if you expect your team to do great things. But for me, I'm a bit superstitious. Maybe that's why I like Carlo more than you guys. I just love us not getting that much attention, us not feeling the pressure of, oh yeah, you must absolutely win. I know there's a pressure to absolutely win. It's almost like before a ball is kicked, the onus is on you. Sometimes I think it gets to us. Even the most untouchable of players, their aura shield gets a hit. It takes a hit when it comes to certain situations like that where you are undisputedly, number one. When the team sheet is announced, for me, a bit of the pressure is off and was off under Carlo in certain situations, which really played into our opponents' heads, and I think that paved way for one of the most successful eras in our club's illustrious history. So I'm thankful for that. So I wouldn't really begrudge Carlo for it. But then again, like what Farooq said, sometimes a change is meant to be. That
Farouk
that's
said
that's how.
eras come to an end, bro. He didn't say change is meant to be.
No, I'm agreeing to you what you said, not quoting Ten Hag or whatever the fuck. Change was needed. After a season like this, and I knew for a fact, the likes of Modric and Vazquez, and even if there were other people who were similar, in terms of their contract situations and whatnot. After a season like this, there'll be collateral, right? It's expected. That has always been the trend with us. People are going to get shot down. So I was prepared for it, but yeah, the way this happened, all three of these guys, leaving altogether. Carlo was almost certain, but yeah, Luka Modric, Vasquez also to an extent, but yeah, I think all three of them combined really, really, yeah, um, a little dealt a heavy blow at least for my mood for the rest of the summer. But yeah, go on, Mo.
So I think I kind of get to have the last word. I'm just gonna say, first of all, immensely thankful to everything that Luka Modric, Lucas Vazquez, Carlo Ancelotti, and Vallejo, although his career didn't live up to the hype that he came in with, unfortunately due to injuries. But like immensely thankful for to whatever contributions they made. Obviously, Luka Modric and Carlo Ancelotti are like at a completely different level. They're going to be among the greatest that football has ever seen. So they deserve a lot of credit. Having said that, especially with Carleto, like Farouk said, Farouk, should I say, era's come to an end? But yeah, but yeah, definitely. I think with Ancelotti this season, I have expressed previously as well. I kind of felt like there was a certain plot that was being lost. There were certain deficiencies that, like, that were creeping up, and unfortunately, it has to end this way because he is Real Madrid's most successful manager. I would have appreciated if he had had the chance to go into the Club World Cup and maybe and end his time at Real Madrid with a trophy. But unfortunately, it's not going to be that way. So we just say goodbye to him right now and wish him the best at, with Brazil. Hopefully, he can achieve success with Brazil that I think that country totally deserves, especially football wise. For Luka Modric, definitely would have loved if he would have continued maybe another year, stayed on with the club, um, said goodbye at the club like Zidane did. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, and I think after a success like this, like you said, Farouk, Sunet, collateral damage happens. I guess now is as good a time as any for Xabi Alonso to start with a new book. I think I kind of understand what Farouk is saying about Xabi Alonso needs to be given time, but I think more than time, he needs to be given the right tools. Um,
Yeah.
Especially in the midfield. I think when we did the pre-match last preseason review preview, sorry, last year, I said the departure of Cruz is going to be the biggest factor this season, and time kind of proved me right. This
Mhm.
team totally struggled. I think
Yeah.
if we know Xabi Alonso, we know that he craves control. So that is something that this team sorely lacks. And Faru, you said you don't know how Xabi Alonso is going to play. I'll make a prediction. I know his team is going to dominate the ball in the deeper areas. They're going to take control and they're going to try and isolate the wingers up forward. So that is how Real Madrid are going to play with him. So he needs those players. There's been a lot of rumors about the fact that he wanted Zubimendi. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Zubimendi is going to be here. But Real Madrid at least needs to sign one player that can give them control in the midfield. Arda Güler alone is not going to be enough. And Modric is leaving, so obviously he's not going to be there. So for next season, I just hope that Real Madrid, this season, although I do agree that Ancelotti made some mistakes, I also think there were moments where players let him down. But then the board also let him down, and I hope Xabi Alonso doesn't suffer the same fate. So far, the signs have been good. I mean, they've already signed, let's say, two players, and a third maybe on the way, with the left back situation trying to be sorted out. Let's see what else, the transfer window brings, and hopefully, like Farouk said, he gets the right tools and time to implement whatever he wants to. And next season, this same time, we are looking forward to the Champions League final.
Champions League final. I hope you're right. I hope you're right. Unfortunately, I'm being pretty realistic about what to expect next season. Unlike Carlo, I do think Xabi Alonso will stick to his guns, and let's just see, how he can adapt. And especially, here's to hoping, like you guys said, here's to hoping the board doesn't leave, Xabi
I'll just
out to dry.
just add this. Xabi Alonso isn't like he's not dogmatic. He is
Mm,
perfectly capable of adapting to the tools that he's given. But then there
mm,
are certain principles that are,
yeah.
undisputed for him. And I think with Ancelotti as well, as much as he was adaptable, there were certain principles that were undisputed for him. And
Mm,
because those principles didn't fit the tools that we had this season, Ancelotti struggled a little bit. For Xabi Alonso, I mean, we don't know what kind of a manager he's going to be because Carlo Ancelotti came with a track record, and we knew he knew how to handle pressure. So for Xabi Alonso, this is going
yeah.
to be the first time, and it's going to be a test. But I mean, although he likes control, and although there's a style of football that is being associated with him because of the obvious reasons. But I do think Xabi Alonso, at least in his fledgling career right now, he's managed at the lower levels at Real Madrid. He managed, at San Sebastian. He managed at Leverkusen. So at least we've seen that he has some degree of flexibility. But the core principles are always going to be there, and I hope he's able to deliver on those core principles when it comes to Madrid.
Poetic, isn't it? I still remember him running, down the touchline to celebrate Ramos's header. Also the Bale goal as well. Yeah, he was basically kicking every ball from the stands. I still remember his iconic picture, with his boots up on the Champions League trophy. I love Xabi Alonso as much as the next guy. I just hope we get to see him succeed. Exciting times. Not gonna lie, but I do think we need more depth in attack. For sure. We just need a different idea up front, at least, enough of the wingers. I would love to see a striker. I'm not sure if that would happen, but we have plenty of time to talk about stuff like that, surely. But Ashik has a very genuine question, he was mentioning. So, honest truth, guys, who cried today? Don't lie, no point being macho here.
So I'm not much of a crier, but I did feel emotional when Luka Modric was substituted and the whole Guard of Honor thing was done for him. But yeah, that's just me.
Farooq
Yeah,
also, I think,
I've
right?
actually
Not.
for me actually it was like with Carlo actually when I saw like like the
Mm,
emotions that he showed like like I really felt that like he felt the connection to the club to the team, and yeah, that was when actually that was what moved me honestly, like I really felt and also when like Luka Modric was embracing Toni Kroos as well, like kind of just brought back the whole like the whole thing with the club, and with the KCM and what these guys were and what they have been and how they've shaped, because the point is like, at least for me, like significant portion of the football I have seen has been dominated by these guys, right? So like it brings the memories. And also like just before to wrap, I just also want to I always say this, like I feel like I always have my criticism of like Carlo Ancelotti, but the one thing that I will forever be grateful for is the way he has allowed Vinicius Junior to grow, because I don't know. I haven't seen any footballer make that swift jump literally from the May of
from
the
going
previous
from
year,
6 to 10, right?
From May of the previous of the previous season to literally 2 months, 3 months later in September, bro became, I don't know, unbeatable. I don't know whatever happened or what they discussed, but yeah, like I criticize Carlo a lot, but like one thing that I would forever appreciate and I thank him for was the development of Vinicius, because for me,
Jude Bellingham bagging 20 goals.
I mean, forget about Jude, man. Jude came as a 100 million transfer, like who had played 3 seasons in
Oh,
Europe,
okay.
whatever. That's a whole different thing.
Okay.
Vinicius Junior was a laughing stock. Vinicius Junior was, I'm sure Vinicius Junior, if he had not performed that season, right now he would actually be, I don't know, rotation piece or something. He would have been, I don't know, playing in Bundesliga with, I don't know, Frankfurt or some shit like that. But like, I feel like what Carlo has done with Vinicius is something that, like, we have to put a lot of respect to and appreciate it. I don't know what he did, but like, yeah, Vini total, 180, like it's unprecedented, honestly. So
Yeah, I think
where it's still, man.
I resonate with the 2 points that Farouk made. For the point about Vinicius is very well taken, but the second point, like these guys have formed our core football memories, especially Modric. I was watching the video that Real Madrid, put out for him to say goodbye to him, and I was like, looking at it, the first day he made his debut. I still remember it. Like I believe it was summer vacations. I was back home, and I was literally watching the game. He comes on, and the first day he wins his first title, and then they keep on playing videos of his long shots and the goals that he's scoring. And thinking, okay, I remember this goal. This is how it changed the game. I remember this goal. This is how it changed the game. So these guys, like they are core memories of football for us. So it's going to be a big miss. And it started with when Sergio Ramos left. Like I said, Ramos is the first player whose entire career at Madrid I followed. And then, Benzema again. Benzema is somebody whose entire career I had followed till then, from Lyon to Real Madrid. And now the strategy keeps on continuing, it's Cruz, and now it's Modric. And one day, unfortunately, it will be Carvajal. So sad days ahead. But, these guys have really, like I said, they have helped us live a fairy tale. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti might have directed it, but they were playing the starting role. So all of these guys deserve a lot of credit for it.
I agree. Like I remember Luka Modric. I think it was after the Decima cup left. The Brazilians are taking a photo, and then he just jumps in. And I think Carlos asks him, like, "Are you Brazilian?" He just says, "I play like a Brazilian." So stuff like that. It's we're going to take all that to the grave. To be honest, yeah, man, these guys gave us so much to cherish, right? But then again, Ashik, to your question, you see how cleverly, Farouk and Mo just completely leapfrogged that question, right? Like they didn't even, Mo kind of gave you a semi-direct answer, but I do think they are not man enough to admit that they shed tears. I was bawling. I'll be honest, Farouk. Ashik, I was completely gone when Luka Modric was substituted. It was too hard for me to sit through. I knew it, like I said at the beginning of this post match. When I watched Cruz ball out, I knew when Luka Modric, his turn came, I just would be completely lost at sea. Initially, it was confusion when Vazquez was subbed off. I thought it wouldn't hit me, but it hit me. It hit me pretty hard. Watching him go off, but then Luka happened. Yeah, I didn't know what to do. It happens, and I'm super grateful that guys like this who doesn't even know we exist, right? Luka Modric wouldn't know who Suned is, but he changed my life. So yeah, super grateful, super grateful. Yeah, Carvajal captain next year, right? Hopefully we give him something to lift. I'm super sad that Modric didn't get a major trophy to lift while he was the undisputed captain. But yeah, hopefully Carval has that honor. Big up people in the chat. Big up Ashik. Big up people who are gonna be tuning in later on as well. Also stuff that we didn't touch up on Raul, leaving Castilla after 6 years at the helm, Arbeloa taking over. I didn't know Diego Lopez was assistant. to
I think
Arbeloa.
he's coming back as an assistant.
Okay. So was he an assistant before?
No.
Okay. I used to absolutely adore Diego Lopez with us when Mourinho bought him over. What a clutch keeper he was, especially in the league. Insane. Um, Hopefully, they get to do great things as well. Mo, where do you think Raul ends up? Do you think he gets a fairly decent gig?
I mean, he's had a lot of opportunities, but I am kind of
Mm-hmm.
surprised that he didn't leave it so far. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he said multiple times that he enjoyed working with Castilla and he's at the club of his life, so he didn't want to leave. I kind of feel like he should have left maybe a couple of seasons ago. But let's see. I think he's had good he's had good chances from Schalke and from Villarreal. I mean, I understand him not wanting to go to Schalke. I mean, nobody would want to go to Schalke right now. But Villarreal, I kind of felt like that should have been a job at least he tried his hand with. He didn't. Let's see what happens. I kind of feel like Raul's story with Real Madrid is not over. There's definitely going to be another chapter, but so far he's going to leave as the most successful, um, La Fabrica manager because he's the only one who's ever won the youth league. Nobody like as much as credit we give a lot of other managers, they never did win the youth league, and Raul is the only guy who has so far. So I do think he's definitely going to give it opportunities if he wants to coach a different club. Real Madrid, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be for the next couple of years, but maybe let's see, 2030 or something. Maybe he gets a chance to return.
Let's hope Raul doesn't take the United job. My goodness.
I mean,
But yeah,
he could give us some, some absolute quotes for Farouk to repeat later on.
can he speak English well? Not
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, he played for Cosmos.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah. Um, who was it? I think Sid was mentioning that Robbie actually told him he met Raul and he spoke pretty good English. I was surprised to hear that. So yeah, you may be right. But yeah, boys, I think that's a wrap for us. Season 24-25, not the way we expected it to pan out. Every bookmaker on Mother Earth tipped us to win the treble, quadruple, sextuple, you name it. Started off on the right note, but yeah, injuries, not proper recruitment. Some of the big players, taking an early vacation kind of hindered our season in total, but it's expected. Coming off of such a historic season, we tend to step off the gas pedal a bit. I'm used to it, but it's still I do think in our modern history, apart from 1819, I think this was one of those seasons that really put the bar super low. I
So this
hope
was the
Chad,
worst. This was the worst defensive season in Real Madrid's history in the last quarter of a century.
statistically,
Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully, Xabi Alonso can raise the spirits, raise the bar, and take us back to the promised land, and especially take us back to our throne. At the top of the Champions League. But until next time, boys, a la Madrid.
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid. Go Ten Hag.
Go Ten Hag.
Go Ten Hag indeed.